Hey, this is Toby. Today I show you how to code a Bollinger Band expert advisor for MetaTrader 5. Let's go. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look what kind of strategy we want to create. So here on the chart, I have a simple Bollinger Band indicator. And let's say if a candle opens above the upper band of the indicator, we want to sell. So here would be our sell signal. And then we would have a stop loss and also a take profit. And also we want to exit the trade if we cross the middle line of the Bollinger Bands. So right here we would exit the trade, and this would be a simple sell trade for our EA. And for the long side it's just the same. So down here we would have a buy signal at the open of this candle here, and we would close this trade if we cross the middle line right here. So this would be a buy trade for our EA. Okay, so let's switch to meta editor and we start coding. Okay, so here we are in the meta editor. Now I will just create a new expert advisor here under my YouTube folder. So I just click on new expert advisor template. Next, let's name it Bollinger Bands EA. Click on next, next, finish, and this is our template. So first step, I will clean this up a little bit. Yeah, you don't have to do this step, but I don't like this standard template here from MetaQuotes. Okay, so now let's save and compile. Now we can start coding our EA. Okay, so let's start with our inputs for the EA. So I will just copy this comment section here and call it inputs. So the first input we want for our expert advisor is maybe magic number. So we just define it as a static variable input, and now the type is long, and the name of the variable input magic number, and we also predefine this number, this variable with a random number like this, and we add a comment here. So static just means that you cannot optimize this variable in the MetaTrader 5 strategy tester. And input for input, and long is the type of the variable. And from outside, you will just see this comment here and not the name of the variable. Okay, now the next input is maybe a input for the lot size. So this can also be static. Input of type double this time. Input lot size. We also predefine this variable, let's say 0.01. And we write a comment, lot size. Okay, now let's add a input for the period of the Bollinger Band indicator. So input integer type, input period. We predefine this maybe with 21, and here we write a comment, period. Next would be also for the Bollinger Band the deviation. So input double input deviation. We also predefine this, let's say with 2, and yeah, deviation. So next we need a stop loss and take profit. So input integer stop loss. This will be in points, so I will just enter 100 here. Stop loss, and same for the take profit. Like this. And yeah, maybe we align this this. Okay, and I think that's it for our inputs here. Let's compile, and we can see no errors, everything works fine. Okay, and maybe here after the take profit comment, we just add 0 equals off, because later we want the take profit to be optional. Okay, now let's copy this comment section here, create another section. We call it global variables, where we define all our global variables for this EA. So we will start with the handle of the indicator. This is of integer type. Just call it handle here. Now we need, of course, the buffers for the indicator. So double, upper buffer, like this. Then also the mean buffer or base buffer. Base buffer here. And also one buffer for the lower Bollinger Band. Okay, what we also need is a variable of MQL tick type. So MQL tick, let's call it current tick, and also a object of the cTrade class. So cTrade, let's call it trade. And of course, for this, we need to include the cTrade class code into our EA. So we'll just create another section here, include, and here we include the cTrade class. So we just write hashtag include, and now I think trade / trade.mqh. If we compile now, we can see we have no errors. So we have the cTrade class code now available for our expert advisor here. Okay, so now let's go to the onInit function here. This function is called when the EA starts, or we switch the period or time frame. So here we can check for the user input, if the input of the user makes sense. For example, we don't want, of course, a negative stop loss or a negative magic number or lot size. So here we can just write if statements and check, for example, the magic number. If the magic number is below or equal to 0, then we want to return and the EA should not start. So here we can just write a alert message for the user. Magic number below or equal to 0. Okay, and also we return init failed, or we can also like init parameters incorrect, like this. And we will do this for every input here. So magic number, next would be the lot size. So input lot size. Now we also do this for the period, the deviation, stop loss, take profit. So input period should not be less than or equal to 1, I would say. So period. The deviation should not be below 0, equal to 0. Yeah. Stop loss. Yeah, should not be 0. So we always need a stop loss. And input take profit can be 0, so it just should not be below 0. Like this. Okay, let's compile. And now the check from our inputs should be done. And the user cannot enter invalid values. So next in the onInit here, we will set our magic number to the trade object. So we just write a comment, set magic number. Maybe we also write a comment here, just check inputs. So set magic number, and here we can just use the trade variable trade.set expert magic number, and then our input magic number. Now we will create the indicator handle of the Bollinger Band indicator. So write a comment, create handle, and here we just write our handle equals to, I think it's I bands here. Use this function here, of course, for the current symbol, the current period, our input period here, shift. We will make a shift of 1. So we only looking at the indicator values of the previous already finished period, and the deviation and applied price. So we will just use price close. Of course, we could do this also as an input here, but doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we have our handle. Now we will check if this was successful. So if the handle equals invalid handle, then we have a arrow and we don't want to start the EA. So here we just write another alert function, failed to create indicator handle. And we also return false, or init failed. Okay, let's compile. And now what I like to do is to set our buffers here as series. So the index 0 is for the latest bar, for the current bar. So set buffers as series, and here the function is called array set as series, and here our array, of course, first of all the upper buffer, and we set that to true, and we do the same for the other two buffers. So the base buffer and also the lower buffer. Okay, let's compile. And that's pretty much it for the onInit function here. Now we can take a look at the onDinit function. Okay, so here we just need to release our indicator handle. So we write a quick comment, release indicator handle, and we do a simple if statement and check if our handle is not a invalid handle. Then we want to call the indicator release function, and we pass our handle here. So now let's compile. This should be it for the onDinit function. Now we can take a look at the onTick function here. Okay, so here in the onTick function, first of all, we want to check if the current tick is a bar open tick, because we only want to take action on bar open ticks. So if a bar opens above the upper band here, we want to sell, for example. So we write a simple comment here, check if current tick is a bar open tick. And now we use a simple if statement, and we call a function here is new bar. If this function here returns false, then we also just want to return here. So the code below this if statement here is only executed if we have a bar open tick. So at the first tick of a new bar. And this is a custom function, so we need to write this function now. So we just create another section, maybe down here, and call it custom functions. Okay, so here the function, of course, is of type Boolean here. Function name is new bar, and we have no parameters. And because it's a Boolean function, we need to return. So here at the end, we just return false. And then we also write a comment here. Check if we have a bar open tick. And here, first of all, we need two variables. The first one is a static variable of type datetime. We call it previous time maybe, and we set it to 0. And the next variable we need is also of type datetime, current time, and we set this variable to the current open time of the current bar. So I time, the symbol is the current symbol, current period, and index 0. And now we just check if the previous time is different to the current time. If that's the case, we set the previous time to the current time, and we want to return true. So that's all we need to write into this isNewBar function here. Now let's compile. So let's test this with a quick visual test here. We can see here the first print statement, new bar open tick. Now if I jump to the next bar, we get the statement every time we have a bar open tick. Of course, we should test this on the every tick mode here. So let's see if we ignore all the other ticks, and let's wait for a new bar. Here we go, new bar open tick at the first tick of every bar. So that's working great. So we can delete this again. Okay, now the next step is here after the isNewBar check to get the current tick. We already have a global variable here, current tick of MQL tick type. And now we just want to populate this current tick. So we write another comment here, get current tick, and here we just use the symbol info tick function again for the current symbol, and we want to store the current tick in our current tick variable here. And of course, if this call here fails, we also want to give a error message, just like failed to get tick, something like that. And we want to return in this case. Okay, so now we have the current tick stored in our current tick variable here. Let's compile. Okay, no errors, perfect. Okay, now we want to get the latest indicator values of our Bollinger Band indicator here. So we just write get indicator values, and we declare a variable here, values, and we use the copy buffer function to get our indicator values. So here we need to set the handle, the buffer number, the start position, and also how many indicator values we want to store. So we only need one, the latest indicator value, and we need to set the array where we want to store the indicator values. So of course we already have our buffers here. So upper buffer, and yeah, I actually don't know which buffer number corresponds to which buffer, to the upper buffer, mean buffer. So maybe we can just take a look at the documentation. So if I select the ibands function here, press F1, we get the documentation. So here we can see down here. So 0 is for the baseline, buffer number 1 is for the upper band, and 2 for the lower band. Okay, so here we set the buffer number 0 here. So this is our mean buffer. How did we call it? Base buffer. Base buffer. Now we also want the value for buffer number 1. Buffer number 1 is the upper buffer. And of course, we also want the values for the lower buffer. So the lower buffer would be buffer number 2. And we always start at position 0, and we always want 1 indicator value. Okay. So now we have everything we need from the indicator here. And in this variable, the copy buffer function just returns the number of copied values. So here we should get 3 if every copy buffer function returns 1 value here. So we can check this now. If values is not equal to 3, we can give a error message, for example. So we just print failed to get indicator values. And we also want to return in this case. Okay, let's compile. So that's working fine. Now what we also can do to see if this is working, we can just comment out the indicator values on the chart. So we can use the comment function here. We just write up 0 for the upper buffer, index 0. And here, of course, our upper buffer 0. Then we also want the base buffer, and also, of course, the lower buffer. Okay, and here we want to make a new line maybe. \n. And we want to close this function. Let's compile and let's go to MetaTrader, and we will run a quick visual backtest to check our indicator values here. So just let this run a little bit. Okay, now let's compare the values. So you can see, since we shifted the indicator for 1, we are not looking at the latest indicator values here, but at the indicator values here at the latest bar. So now we can compare the values you can see here in the data window with the values we are displaying here in the top left corner with our comment function. So now let's compare. The upper band is 1.666897. Yeah, that's the same value here. And now the baseline, 1.6582. 1.6582, that's also correct. And the lower value 1.6495, 1.6495. Okay, so the indicator values are correct. The indicator values here are the same as we see here on the chart and in the data window. So that's working fine. So now we can go back to meta editor. And maybe what I would like to do is just to move this to the next line so we can see everything. We don't have to scroll to the right. Now, before we check for if you can open new trades, we need to write one more function. This function will count the currently open positions. So count open positions, because we only want to open a new trade, of course, if we have not already a trade open. So we just declare two variables, count buy and count sell. Here we write a if statement, count open positions, and we will pass here the two variables, count buy and count sell. And if this function fails, we also want to write a error message, or no, we just want to return, because the actual error message will be written out from this function itself. Okay, like this. And now we just need to write this count open position function. Okay, so let's go down to our custom functions section here, and we just write a comment, count open positions. And the function is again of type Boolean. The name is, of course, count open positions. And this time we have two parameters here for this function. So both of type integer, and we pass both as a reference. So we use the sign here and just count by, and the other one also integer, count sell. So here in the end, we also want to return true, of course. And now this should be able to compile. Okay, and we want to pass these parameters as reference. So if we change them inside here, for example, if we do like count by equals 0, now also the count by variable here will be 0. So later we can use these variables here, and in these variables are the number of open positions for buy positions and also for sell positions. So later here we can use them to check if we have a trade open on the buy side and also on the sell side. Okay, so now let's also set the count sell to 0. Like this. And now what we need to do to count all open positions is to loop through all currently open positions of our MetaTrader platform. So to do this, first of all, we declare a variable called total, and here we store the positions total number. So this gives us all open positions at the current time, or the number of open positions. And now we can do a simple for loop. And we start at total -1, because you should always loop down if you look through positions. And we do this as long as our counter is greater or equal to 0. And of course, we subtract 1 for each loop. So first of all, what we need is to get the position ticket of the current position from our counter here. So we declare a variable of type ulong, and we call it just position ticket maybe. And here we can use the position get ticket. And here the index is of course our counter variable here. And now we also check if this call was successful. So if position ticket is below or equal to 0, we want to print a error message like failed to get ticket. And in this case, we also want to return false. Okay, if the selection of the ticket was successful, now we need to, in order to get fresh position data, to select the position again. For this, we just write another if statement. Position select by ticket. And now we have our position ticket. So position ticket. And also if this function call fails, we also want to return a error message for the user. So print failed to select position. And we also want to return false in this case. Okay, let's compile real quick. Okay. Now the next step is to get the magic number of the open position we are currently selected here, because we only want to count the open positions, of course, for our EA. We already set the magic number. Here with our input to the straight variable object. So every open position will have our magic number. And now we, of course, only want to count the positions from our EA. So for this, we write another variable here. Let's call it just magic. And now we check if the currently selected position has our magic number. So if, first of all, we need to get the magic number of the selected position. So position, I think get probably integer. And here we already can see position magic. And we want to store the result in our magic variable. So if this function returns false, we also want to print a message failed to get magic. We return false. Okay, but now we have our magic, or the magic number of the position stored in this magic number variable here, in this magic. And now we can just check if this magic number is equal to our input magic number, then we know it's the position belongs to our EA. So in this case, we want to count the position. So, and now the last step we need to do is to check if this is a buy position or a sell position, because we want to count the buy position separately from the sell positions. So we write another variable here, call it type, and now we get the type of the position, also with position get, I think it's also integer, position type. And again, we store the result here in our type variable. And if this function again fails, we want to write a message. So failed to get type and return false. So now that we have the type of the position here in our variable type, we can just do a simple if statement here. if the type is a position type buy, then we want to increase the counter of our buy positions by 1. So at the start it was of course 0 here. If we have 1 open position with our magic number and the type buy, we increase the counter to 1. We do the same for the sell type. So if this position is a sell position, then we want to increase our sell counter here by 1. Okay, now let's delete this a little bit to make save and compile. And this should give us the currently open position count for the buy position and for the sell positions. Okay, so now we have everything we need to check if we can open a new position. So we go back in the onTick function here, and after we count the buy positions and the sell positions, we can write a comment here, check for lower band cross. To open a buy position. We can use a simple if statement here, and now of course the count buy has to be 0, so there should not be a buy position open at this time. And of course our current tick ask price has to be below or equal to our lower buffer of the Bollinger Band, because here we want to buy, here we want to buy, and here for example. And also, just as a additional safety feature, we make a check to only open 1 position per bar. The open time buy is not equal to the open time of the current bar. So symbol, period current, shift 0. Now, of course, we need to declare this variable here. So we go up to our global variables section here. And this will be a variable of type datetime, open time buy. We can set it to 0. And we also need a variable for open time sell. We will also set this to 0. Okay, now let's go back to our onTick function here. So the first step here inside this if statement is to set this open time buy variable to the current open time of the bar. So period current 0, like this. Now we just make sure that we only enter this if statement once for each bar. Okay, now the next step would be to calculate the stop loss and take profit before we can open a buy trade. So we write a variable stop loss, and we can use the current tick bid price to calculate the stop loss minus our input. And of course the input is in points here. If we go up, maybe we should also add this here. So stop loss in points, just to make this a little bit more clear. And also take profit in points. Okay, so since this is in points, we have to multiply it. We can use the predefined variable point here, and this will give us our stop loss level. Now we can do the same for the take profit. So we also use the current tick bid, and here of course our input take profit, and of course we add the take profit to the current price, because for a buy position the take profit has to be above the opening price of the position. Okay, and also we set the take profit to be optional. So if the user enters 0 for the take profit, we also want to set this variable here to 0. So we can do a simple check here. If the take profit equals 0, then we set this take profit variable here to 0, and else, this means else, we set it to this value here. Okay, so now we have our stop loss, take profit. Now before we open a position, we need to normalize the stop loss and take profit. So we will use a custom function for this. So let's just write, or first of all, let's compile to see if we have any errors. So 0 warnings, 0 errors. Now let's write this normalize function here. So let's just call it normalize price. And here we will enter our stop loss and we will get back the stop loss. And if this function fails, then we want to return. And we do the same for the take profit. And here, of course, we enter the take profit. And we also get, this will be also by reference. So we get the new normalized price back in our take profit value and in our stop loss value. Okay, now let's write this normalized price function here. So we go down to our custom functions section here. And this will also return a Boolean. So the return type is Boolean, then the function name. And we have two parameters for this function. First, we take the stop loss as an input, and then here the second one is also the stop loss as a reference. So double price. And the second one also of type double, this time as a reference. So here we give back the normalized price. And we return false here, or true in the end. Okay, and now, first of all, we need to get the tick size. So we write double tick size 0, and now we check if we can get the tick price with the symbol info double function. For the current symbol, symbol trade tick size, and we store the result in our tick size variable here. So of course, if this function fails here, we also want to print a error message, failed to get tick size. We also want to return false in this case. So here we add this. So we just set the normalized price variable here to normalize double around, and here we just divide the price by the tick size, and we also multiply this by the tick size, and we round that down to the number of digits for the current symbol. This is all we need for the normalized price function. Now we can compile, and we enter a price here, and we get back the normalized price with the second parameter. So here in the onTick, we can see we pass the stop loss here for the first parameter, and we get back as a reference the normalized stop loss and also for the take profit. So now we can do the next step, which would be just to open the trade. So we use our trade objects here, and we call it position open. Again, for the current symbol, order type buy. The volume is of course our input lot size here. The price we want to open the position. So this is a buy position. So of course we want to use the current tick ask price. Stop loss or take profit, and a comment. We can maybe say Bollinger and EA. And this should open a buy position for us. Now let's check if this is already working. We compile, we switch to MetaTrader platform, and let's just run a quick visual test here. And let's wait for a cross of the lower band. And of course we need a open tick here below, and we can see we have opened a buy position here with a stop loss and take profit. So now we can see we only open one position. Let's wait for another one. Down here, we did another buy position. So that's working fine. So now we can go back to meta editor, and we can do the same here for the cross of the upper band of the Bollinger Band indicator. So we copy this, paste it here, check for upper band cross to open a sell position. This time our count sell has to be 0. Current tick bid price has to be above or equal the upper band, and open time sell has to be different to the current open time of the bar. And here again, also open time sell, stop loss, take profit, current tick. We use now the ask price to calculate stop loss and take profit. So input stop loss, and of course here we need to add the stop loss for the sell position, and for the take profit we also use the ask price and we subtract the take profit. We also normalize the stop loss, take profit, and then we open the position. So of course order type sell this time, current tick at the bid price, Bollinger Band EA comment. This can be the same. So now let's compile and check if we open a buy and a sell position. So let's see. First buy position down here. Let's just wait for the first sell position. We can see we opened a sell position with stop loss and take profit. Okay, so now we can close the tester, and this is it for the opening of the buy position and the sell position. Now, as I said in the beginning, we want to close the positions if we cross the middle line of the Bollinger Band indicator. So that is the last step we need to do. So we go back here at the end of the onTick function. We can now check if we cross the middle line, and if we have a position open, then we want to close it. So here we just write a comment, check for close at. So if we cross the middle line, and what we want to do is to count again the open positions. And now we can just check if the count buy is greater than 0. So if we have a buy position open and the current tick bid price is now greater than the upper band. So if we buy down here and we are now here above the upper band, we want to close this buy position. So greater than our base buffer 0. In this case, we call a function close position or positions. And for the parameter here, we just enter 1. I will explain this in a second. Let's do this for the cell trades too. So the count cell has to be greater than 0. The current tick ask has to be below or equal to the base buffer. Then we want to close all cell positions. So here we enter 2 for the parameter. And now the last step is to write this close position function here. Okay, so let's just go down to the custom functions section. And since this function will be pretty similar to the count open position, I will just copy this whole function here, go down and paste the code here. And now we change the comment here, close positions, and the name, close positions. And here this function has only one input parameter, and I call it all by cell. So I use this integer just to select which positions I want to close. So if I enter 0, that means all positions. If I enter 1, I close all buy positions. If I enter 2, I close all sell positions. And we already set the parameters here. So 1, of course, here for the buy positions and 2 for the sell positions. So let's delete this here. We again need the int total variable, positions total. We again loop from the total -1 all the way down to 0. And then we get the position ticket. We select the position again. We check for the magic number. And we get the type of the position. And now down here, we need to change these if statements a little bit. So we check if our all by cell parameter here is 1. And if the type is type position cell, then we want to continue here. And we do the same if the all by cell parameter is 2, but our position type is buy, then we also want to continue. And we don't want to close this position because we said here with the all by cell parameter, we want to close cell positions, but the current selected position here is a buy position. So just continue with the next position. Okay. And of course, if we enter 0 here, it would close all positions. So now we just need to close the position here, so we can use our trade object, position close, and then the ticket. So we have our position ticket here, and the deviation, we don't need to enter a parameter for this. So we can just do it like that. This will close the position, and maybe we also check for the return of this function call here if the operation was successful. So we just write a if statement, trade dot result red code. If that is not equal to trade red code done, then we want to print a error message for the user. So failed to close position, something like that. And we also want to return false here. And maybe what we also can do is to add more information why this close position operation failed here. So we can just give out the ticket number, string position ticket, and maybe also the result. So trade dot Salt red code. Put this in another line here. Okay, now we compile and we can see one error here. So we do need to cast this to a string. And here, not supported yet. We need some brackets here. Okay. Now the EA is basically done and we can do a final backtest. Okay, let's run a final backtest here. First of all, we will run a visual backtest with these inputs. Maybe I deactivate the take profit so we can see the close at the middle line. Yeah, right here, we opened a buy position and we closed it as soon as we got one open tick above the middle line of the Bollinger Band indicator. And let's also check this for a sell position. Yeah, right here, sell position closed here as soon as we got a open tick below the Bollinger Band line. Okay, so now we can set the take profit to 500 again. So I will use these inputs here. British pound, Canadian dollar, 1 hour time frame starting in 2017 for this backtest. So let's just run this. And we can see we have a nice looking equity curve. So now I want to go through the code once again, just so you can see all the stuff we did in this video. So here at the very top, we have our inputs, parameters, our global variables, then the onInit function where we check the input parameters. We set the magic number here, we create the indicator handle, and we set the buffers as series. Now here in the onInit, we just delete the indicator handle again. On tick, we check for a new bar. We get the current tick of the symbol. We get the indicator values. We count for open positions. We check if we need to open a new buy trade. We check if we need to open a new sell trade here. And here in the end of the onTick function, we check if we need to close positions. And these are the custom functions. So is new bar. We coded the count open position function and normalized price and the close position function. So if this video was helpful for you, it would be nice if you just leave a like. These videos are for you to create your own expert advisors, your own strategies, because I think that is something you need to do in order to be successful as an automated trader, to create your own strategies. I've already made a playlist about this topic. I will link it up here. And if you want to know more about coding MQL5, we already did a time range breakout EA here on this channel. I will also link it up here, and also a moving average crossover and a time-based entry EA. So I hope this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions about automated trading, just write a comment or write me through my website or via Telegram. And I will see you in one of the next videos. Bye.